Okay, so in this guide, we're going to cover the new Common Key and Affinity Key system that got revamped recently. It's not too complicated, but we'll cover it all in about 5 minutes here, kind of aim for the stats that you want to go over, and, including your keys and how you acquire them. So let's get started. This should be a very quick guide. Okay, so if you're returning to the game after a while, long break, or you just haven't really had a chance to go through this system yet, they split the keys up into two different things, and they're pretty straightforward, but let's talk about them real quick and kind of go through them. I'm going to use a good old cool guy here as our test example. So when you log in for the first time, or the first time you look at these keys, you'll see a lot of the old keys. They have these little exclamation points next to them. That means they're not being used right now, so we can go ahead and just uninstall all these keys, because the way the keys work now is that the 3 slots on the right here are for keys that come from events, such as like simulation exercises and character events, and then you get the keys that you get from neural helix expansions. So once again, 3 on the right, these are the same as always. The only one that's changed here is the bottom one. This is the affinity key slot. This is a new slot, so this is like bonus stats. The only key that can go in here is the key that you unlock for getting a character to level 5 affinity. Now, if you use the character's key that you actually unlock, so for example, this one, Fly Silver Wings, this is actually Kulkai's key that you get when you unlock her affinity level 5. You get a bonus on here. Now, at affinity level 5, it's a 10% bonus, which is pretty negligible, but it goes all the way up to a 50% bonus if you have the Covenant enabled on the character and the character leveled up all the way. Now, you can put other characters' keys in this slot. So, for example, like let's say you had a character who's, this is like, for example, this is Ksenia's key. Let's say you didn't want attack, health, and defense. You wanted crit rating, crit damage. Well, you can put somebody else's key in the slot. You just won't get the bonus stats, but having the stats that are correct will probably outweigh having the teeny tiny bit of extra stats that you would get by putting the correct key in there. So after we put that key in, we can go ahead and install some other keys in here. I'm going to just slap a couple here. We'll just put a generic one there, and it's good. Sure, some attack boost, whatever. The way the system works now is that you can kind of customize the keys and create your own perfect 3-stat keys. Let me see if I can find a good one in here with crit. There we go. So normally common keys obviously have the ability on them and then the 1 stat. And usually you're kind of just up to the dev's decision as far as like what stat you're going to get. Now, with the new system, you can evolve the key and unlock secondary stats. So to no one's surprise, the secondary stats that you're always going to go for are crit and crit damage, in addition to attack percentage. Once again, this is kind of a no-brainer, but how this works is you select one of the stats here. You'll have to spend some of these, which we'll get into in a second, these universal chain keys, and then you unlock the stat. So we do that, and now all of a sudden it's got 2 stats, and now we'll make it a, quote, perfect key, and we'll unlock the 3rd stat. And there we go. Now you'll see all 3 stats are enabled, and then same thing as before, like as far as like calibrating with gold chips, you would just max them out like this. Now, obviously, if you look at the bottom there, this gets pretty expensive, so you don't want to just be doing this willy-nilly. You might want to plan this out a little bit. If you have a key that you can't pick exactly the stats you want, like let's say it's a key that has like health on it, for example, as the main stat. So you can only put 2 more on there. I heavily suggest you pick attack boost and crit damage. The reason you pick attack boost and crit damage is because they scale a lot better than crit rate. A lot of characters between self buffs, team-wide buffs, Gunsmoke frontline, seasonal buffs, they can approach 100% and overcap on crit. And any percentage of crit past 100 is worthless. Meanwhile, crit damage not only scales better because of how the damage formula works, it's multiplicative with the rest of the stat boosts. You can never, quote, overcap on crit damage. So, but you make a perfect key like that, and then these other keys work exactly the same way. You would just go ahead, evolve, pick the stat. Once again, I suggest crit damage. If you don't, if you're kind of like on the fence as far as what stat to get, always crit damage. It's always a good one. There's a reason why it's only on barrel attachments. And then same thing, you can level up the other two stats from 3% all the way up to 5%, so you can make them just as good as a perfect common key. Now, these common keys that you get from character neural helixes, these are a little more powerful, obviously, because they come with a free ability, so you want to focus on maxing these out first. But, you know, after you've done that, you can go ahead and start maxing out some of your, like, generic keys. Which leads us to the following question, which is, do you disassemble these keys? Now, you have the ability to disassemble the keys at the storage room. I would highly suggest you don't do that for two reasons. You might be able to go ahead and switch out, for example, there's a lot of keys that have attack and defense, and as everyone kind of knows, defense is kind of an ass stat. So you can probably get away with disassembling those, but I do want to point out for those of you who are like collection enthusiasts, you can't craft these keys, and you know, like the key names and stuff, they're always going to be kind of locked to these keys. Like you'll never get another, I don't know, like Prank Hunter, for example, or Petite Powerhouse. I think this is MP5's key. So, you know, just be aware of that. Now, the only way currently that you can get keys is in the monthly shop. If we come to the trading post here and we come to Growth Stack, I believe. Yeah. So every month there's like kind of a generic key that's available to purchase here. And then obviously you'll get them from seasonal events, character events, more so, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the one that you're going to kind of just get like multiples of. So you can use this to disassemble if you're really desperate for some chains. But I would, once again, I would hold on to them. I'd be pretty cautious about doing this because it's easier to get the chain keys, which we're going to talk about here. The universal chain keys. It's a lot easier to get these than to get actual like extra keys to level up in stats. The way you get these are kind of sprinkled throughout the game. The obvious ones are, once again, through the boss shop there, through the platoon shop here, there's some, and then I believe there's a bunch in the seasonal events, or the character events, I should say. Once again, you'll get more here, and then same thing, you'll get character keys and whatnot, but once again, be kind of cautious. If you really don't care about, like, you know, any of the name stuff, yeah, you can rip apart these like 2 stat ones or 2% ones. These ones are kind of worthless. And then I think there's one other location somewhere buried in one of these 17 menus where you can get the universal chain keys. But that's kind of it. Like I said, get universal chain keys, use them to make perfect common keys, and then just gear your characters out with the keys that make the most sense as far as their ability. And then, like I said, for your affinity slot, just try and use their affinity key unless their affinity key has just absolutely terrible stats, in which case, pick the one with the best. So that should be it for this one. I will catch you guys in our next guide. See ya!